Welcome to the Frequency Ma podcast with Sheena Israel and Alyssa Ma. Frequency Ma is a sanctuary for the oracular and the ordinary. We explore the interwoven paths of mothering, embodied business and prosperity, self-creation and relationship, spiritual technologies like channeling and frequency keeping. Expect earth and insights to catalyze your quantum leaps. For the multi-dimensional, multi-passionates, all of you is welcome here. Journey with us. Welcome to the Frequency Ma podcast. I'm so excited to be here today with Sarah Lupton, aka ex-girl boss across her socials, and her path really spirals through multiple realms of high achievement into disillusionment and then into realignment. And to list just a handful of those accomplishments, Sarah graduated magna cum laude from Duke University and then began her career in documentary film. She saw her work premiere at Tribeca Film Festival, and then from there she earned her MBA, launching a strategic storytelling agency, and over the next decade grew it into a multimillion-dollar company serving major corporate clients around the world. Over time, her work became misaligned with her values, and in 2022 she sold her business and chose a reset. So she spent months in nature traveling, listening for a new rhythm of life, and from that space she developed the soft power method, which is a business strategy rooted in clarity, autonomy, and ease. And today Sarah mentors women who want to build income from their lived wisdom without burning out. And she's guided hundreds to integrate their skills with a lifestyle that supports well-being, financial security, and fulfillment. And I really I'm so excited to have you here, Sarah, because I think your journey speaks to the tension that many of us feel, that drive to achieve, but also the cost of overwork, the ways that corporate consciousness can sneak even into our, creative and spiritual lives. And your work really offers another possibility where you can have this sustainable business that's value aligned as well as life-giving. So Sarah, welcome to Frequency Ma. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this. We had our pre-conversation, and as soon as we spoke, I was like, this is going to be amazing. So I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. This is it's, as I was mentioning in our pre-call as well, this is the first podcast where it's centered around integrative and embodied business. This is like the last decade of my life has been centered around business, and this has been kind of the other pole, the Frequency Ma space. So it's really a moment for me of like weaving those two together. So personally delighted and so excited for the value that will come through this space. So yeah, I guess I'd love to hear, based on your journey, which spans all of these various domains of accomplishment, really being immersed in spaces that have a high requirement for focused performance and are really kind of characterized by, I guess, what I might call corporate consciousness, even if it's not specifically working for corporate, like owning your own agency, producing a film. They require project timelines, deliverables, all of the metrics, performance metrics, all of these things that can feel to the feminine nervous system kind of like jarring or incompatible with a truly soft life. So I'm interested to hear from wherever you sit today and viewing the spiral of your story from the heart of that place, like where does that arc of transformation begin for you?
Where does it begin? Growing up, in my family system, one of the ways that I learned was a good way for me to get by was to achieve, to get straight A's, to do a lot of things. A lot of perfectionism kind of baked into that. And so when I started my adult life and my career, then that's what I brought into it. And I also was beginning my career in a creative field at a time. I graduated college in 2009, which there were a lot of things going on macro level that led to a perfect storm of like a really unhealthy first experience working. But I was living in New York City. I was working in a creative field, which was documentary. It was a small company. There was no HR department or anything like that. And I kind of like had grown up on these reality shows because they were really big at the time. I didn't really watch The Apprentice or anything, but I feel like that kind of culture, that super cutthroat business culture, was like in the water of how people worked. And I remember there was this show with Kelly Catrone called Kel on Earth.
Yes.
Like if
Yes,
you
I know that one.
outside. And so when I went to New York, I was from North Carolina, and I had these starry eyes for New York City. And I was like, to make it in New York, you have to be this badass that doesn't show emotion and just gets shit done. And so that's how I worked. That's how I figured I would keep my job. That was the beginning of the girl boss decline, but it took me a lot of years to really get to probably a rock bottom with it, and then realize, yeah, I gotta find a different way of living. And I'm still figuring it out to this day. But so basically, like you walked through my arc. So I started working in independent film, and I did various projects in that. And then like when I turned 24, like between 24 and 26, I was like, if I keep doing this job, I will die early because this is just very all on. There were so many things that were really fun about the job, but there was a lot that it just did not work with the rhythm that my body wanted to be in. And I didn't have that vantage point or that language at the time. Instead, it just came out in like really intense anxiety, insomnia, drinking a lot of alcohol, not having healthy relationships with friends or family. I was in a relationship that wasn't healthy, and I just didn't really have like that was like welcome to adulthood. And I was like, I guess this is what it's like to live in New York and be an adult. I didn't know really any different, but I did know I can't keep doing this anymore. So that's why I went to business school, because I was like, if I'm working this hard, I need to figure out how to make money from it. So I'm going to go figure that out. So I got an MBA. And then when I was there, it really affirmed that the traditional corporate scene was probably not going to be for me. Definitely really like owned that I needed a lot more autonomy in how I work. And so I took what I learned in business school and I created my own business, which was a hybrid of what I learned in business school plus what I learned doing film. I called it a strategic storytelling agency. We did a lot of video content that was a lot of marketing and internal communications for corporate. And then over time, I was like totally repeating those same patterns of achieve, 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 go, 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 like suppress emotions, show up as a machine. I feel like there's like this adage of like separate business and personal and like be professional. And I would just wear that armor every day. And inside, I was totally crumbling. And it finally just got to a point where I was like, I can't have this be my life anymore. And so it took a couple of years, but I extracted myself from that company. And then I set out on a journey of, if not that, which is kind of what it was kind of like, I thought, I thought this is what we were supposed to be doing, and I did it. And how come it doesn't feel good? And so when I realized that it didn't feel good for me, that was like, if not what I've been told my whole life is success, what would success really look like for me? And so I spent a few years really like unpacking that and discovering it, really reconnecting with my body, like learning simple things that sound very basic. But I think when you get in the routine of like hustle culture or achievement based and performance based, it's like you're going through the motions so quickly that you forget, like, what does my body need? I think I need more. I think I need more water. I think I need to call my mom. I think I need to cry. Like I think I need to laugh. And so spending those 3 years since I sold my company in 2022, reconnecting and like relearning myself and like basically reclaiming my identity outside of the girl boss persona that I had spent a lot of my life pursuing, thinking that that was like going to make me happy.
Well, I love that you spoke into the actual, like in the 3D time that was required to really unwind those patterns, because I think when we hear stories of transformation, it can feel so like, and then I did this, and it's like, yeah. So really like showcasing the time and the micro pattern adjustments and the micro attunements to the now bodies needs and desires. So that's really resonant with me that, there, and I love how you mentioned it felt like putting on your armor, that there's this kind of like, okay, I've got to toughen up. I've got to create another persona to go out and achieve and to cultivate success, and understanding kind of what aspects of ourself have been formed around ideas of success that are not our own, that are coming from the culture, coming from our family structures, coming from any place that is not truly like sourced in
Hmm.
desire. And really thinking about like, okay, like ambition isn't the enemy, but like, where are we when it's absent, like a connection to like our deep seated, like womb space desire, then it can become a driver that drives us beyond the coherent edges of our field. And so, yeah, I'm curious, what was the role of like discovering your desire? And is that a place that you felt you could source your drive from?
Yeah, no, I think that everything you said is just so brilliant and spot on. I think it's very easy to go through life without checking yourself to see actually like what is the underlying belief or the underlying conversation that's driving me to take action and perform in this way. And so a lot of the work that I've been doing, like really I'm 38. I started probably doing this when I turned 30 because I remember I had this moment where I was like, I feel like the chaos. I feel like I remember thinking to myself, that was okay for my 20s, but in my 30s, I'm supposed to be a real adult. I got to get it together. But this idea of really understanding what's what's the motivation here? And when you simplify it, it's always like, is it coming from something fear based or is it coming from something love based?
Mm.
And for me, and I feel like for many people, because now I've coached so many different people, it's like that's always a good marker to be in that line of inquiry with yourself at all times. Like, what's actually driving this here? So when you get that twinge of like, this doesn't feel right, it's like a good somatic cue to be like, hey, where is this really coming from? So that's been a big part of my process. And I feel like it does take time because I think there's things today that I understand about myself that I wouldn't have had access to when I started thinking about this 8 years ago, because my nervous system was still on overdrive, and like my physiology, it could not relax into some of the things that now I've, through ease, through softness, through release, they can just more easily bloom out. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you hit on the nervous system. I was hearing that and feeling that in my own journey and own body, this like the nervous system just takes time to like relax. And the world is like, I want to just like shout this from the rooftops to all of the women out there who are in that adrenaline powered, like you're getting things done for your family and the workplace, and you're using that to source your energy. And it's valid. We don't need to carry more shame, that's a survival mechanism that serves us when we are in these spaces of contraction. But that I love that like clarifying noticing of like, okay, when you can't do anything else, when you're like in that space of go go go, and you can't like it's not going to be just one bath that allows you to unwind and like connect to your deepest why. But what's that next action? Is it coming from fear or love? Is such a nice little tactic to reorient and to subtly course correct into a way of being that will manifest in an external reality that loves you back in the way that you are craving. So thank you for sharing that. It feels really nourishing, like deeply nourishing to feel into that. I'm curious too. I think it's easy for me, maybe others as well, to kind of cast the corporate as villain, because anything in excess, when it becomes separate from the core essence of the self, it creates incoherence. It creates incongruity between the expression of ourself and our ability to manifest our mission. But I'm curious if there are any things that you feel particularly resonant with that were like really medicine in that space that you have carried through into your soft girl era, into this like new integrated way of being. Yeah. So like what aspects of that world, that life, that, period of achievement have you carried forward?
Yeah. Are you familiar with spiral dynamics and like Ken Wilber and integral theory? Have you come across that at all?
Not in any way I can remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I started getting into it this past year and well, maybe like two or so years, but it's really supported me in understanding some of the evolution of my own consciousness. But what happens in the individual level, consciousness wise, it also is happening on the collective. And
I'm
so,
seeing that little graph, that little funnel graph in my mind where it's like we're
yeah,
in the green zone or something right now.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, this in spiral dynamics, it's just a framework of how to think about the evolution of human consciousness. And like, there was a time when it was more tribe based and you related to identity as like, this is my family, this is my tribe, this is my priority. As consciousness evolves and we have different advancements, because it's like when somebody's in a level of consciousness and then they're kind of like tapping out, they're like, huh, like what's the cap on this? Then they go to the next level. And the way that the framework lays it out is where there's a center of gravity of consciousness, it will evolve into, if it's an individual oriented culture, it'll move into a group oriented culture. So we do this on an individual level. And so if we think about now, I feel like now we're kind of collectively in spiral dynamics, like it's a random color assignment, but orange level of consciousness, which is essentially a lot of innovation. It
Mm.
started to emerge during the Enlightenment. It's like modern democracy is from this level of consciousness, and I feel like that's kind of where we are. Prior to orange, it was blue. Blue was very rule following. So that's when we saw like society was really ruled by like an authority figure, like a king or a priest or like pope or whatever. And people wanted like a rule set and to follow the rules and to know if I follow these rules, then I'll be good enough. That was kind of the value system. You can see that would maybe tap out for some people when they're starting to question, like, well, why is this guy in charge? I feel like maybe I can do it. So then you start having the emergence of orange. And that's when you give rise to these like super innovative inventors and entrepreneurs. And we're definitely kind of like seeing that in our culture today with entrepreneur culture, but like the rise of the billionaires, we're going to space, all of these different things. The next level above that is green consciousness. And that goes back more into the collective we again.
Mm.
Um, it's like you can see blue is more, it's prioritizing, okay, we're all going to follow these rules. It's prioritizing group. Orange is like, I'm going to do it my way. Green is like, you're going into some of the social justice movements. So it really started emerging in the 60s. Getting a little bit off your question, but the reason I say I'm saying that it's a framework is because when you ask me what have I taken from those experiences, I think one of the things that I also love about this framework is it's not like once you evolve your consciousness to the next level, you don't abandon the previous
Mm.
level. It's like you expand upon it and you integrate it within. And that's kind of how I feel about my journey. Like you're always moving at your edge. You're always moving at to making the best decisions that you can with the information that you have available to you. And that includes like what you're able to perceive about reality, like where you are in your own evolution of consciousness. And so things like there's so many amazing things that I like still really resonate with from that lifestyle, which is a lot of rigor, a lot of like this idea of setting big ambitious goals,
Yeah.
like the idea of being willing to dream so big and so out of the ordinary that it's not reasonable. These are all things that I love about what that like level of consciousness has brought forth. And there's still things that I'm playing with in my life today. So I like that you're kind of like made that distinction up front. You know, a lot of times we want to paint things like really blanket, good, bad, right, wrong. And the more life I experience, the more I reject the notion that there is such thing as good, bad, right, or wrong.
Yeah.
And what I'm leaning into right now in my life is really just what is what is so deeply resonant in myself, what do I deeply desire? What, when I close my eyes, am I like almost like turned on thinking like, oh my God, if I could have this, you know? And my belief around that is when it's coming from such an authentic place, then it also expands out into the collective. So like when I'm living my best life, when I am truly living from my heart, when I'm living in a way where my like I'm able to hold my vibration at a level that resonates out, it's not just that I'm having a great life experience, but I'm also carrying everybody with me, because everybody that I touch, everybody that experiences me, they get like inspired as well, and they're like, oh, that's where we're going. And it's not just me, like there's people in my life that I look and I'm like, whoa, like I want some of that. So my part of why I wanted to create the business that I have now is really to inspire people, like, go for it. Don't be afraid to want a life that is unreasonable. Don't be afraid to want a life that sounds like you're asking too much, because when it's truly aligned from your soul, like when you're just like, no, from the purest place of me, I freaking want this in my life, like that is authentic, and there's there's no ego game around it. And so when you're not living from ego, when you're like living from pure desire, joy, passion, it just creates an entirely different experience for yourself, but it translates out, it radiates out into everyone that you come into contact with.
I love that so much. And I love that spoken shift from like the moralizing frameworks into like a resonance based framework where it's like we don't have to like be mired in these stories of right or wrong, or because I think that's such a big one that holds people back, is that if I dared to dream this big, like I would be harming my family, or it would be there would be some kind of, this can be like past life stuff. It can be all kinds of origin points for these stories that really have a stranglehold on our holy ambition that is driving us to birth our gifts in this lifetime, our spiritual gifts into form. And if we chose to incarnate like during this time, like you got something big to birth. And it's I love that you're calling attention to like the ways that we can self-limit, and like encouraging us all to have a big dream, be unreasonable, be wild about it. But
Yeah, I think so many women, to your point, they do feel like they're not allowed to actually have what they want. There's so much conditioning on all of us, on all human beings on planet Earth, but particularly women. There's a in this culture, like there's a set of expectations that we feel like we are supposed to be meeting. And so a lot of the work that I do with women, there's like a light bulb moment where they're like, you mean I don't have to ask for permission? You mean that thing that I made up when I was 5 years old with my mom, I don't actually have to listen to it anymore? And then like so often too, my clients will be like, is this right? Like they'll pitch me like, okay, so I'm thinking about this for my offer or something like that. And like, is that right? I'm like, I don't know. Is it right? You tell me. Does it feel right? Is this what you want? Like nobody knows except for you. Because when that magic alignment happens, then it's like game over. When you're like, oh, this is what I'm building. You become unstoppable when you're able to shed all of that conditioning and truly be free to be like, I'm going for what I want. No compromises, no negotiation. It's a magical thing.
I love that so much. Oh, I feel like we could spiral into, because you're talking about the emergence of an organic offer that is like one of the things that I do see in the space of women either like coming from corporate, coming from a 9 to 5, or stay-at-home moms who are like birthing a business online. That we're all multi-passionates, right? We have like, I'm good at all of these things. Like we also have our storied life experience, which, may have threads that don't seem congruent, or like they can weave in a way that can be palatable or useful to the collective. And so kind of swimming through all of that and going like, okay, like what is my offer? And I think a lot of times I see, especially like the Instagram world is it started out very photography based. It's like highly visual. It wasn't about captions. It was more about just aesthetic. And that was what was so refreshing at the time that it came out as this alternative to Facebook. And I think that that kind of like aesthetic orientation is carried through in collective command that's like, okay, the first thing that you do when you're starting something is you build a brand. This is the kind of business basics, it's like, well, you get your brand identity, and it's like, well, that can be a kind of premature way of eclipsing what wants to actually come through and having a clarified offer. I'm interested just how do you view the priority of having a coherent brand identity? Because, in digital spaces, when people are seeking to find that resonance, a coherent visual identity is important. We're talking about the world as constructed by frequency and wanting to connect our medicine with those who are seeking it. But what's the role of brand and what is the sequence? Building an offer, building a brand. How do you see that sequence emerging? And are there any problems that you've seen over the many women that you've coached that are common misconceptions?
Yeah, well, the first one would be it's not linear because different things are going to be more clear for one person than for another early on. What my process really focuses on is like go towards what's working. So like it doesn't have to be step by step linear process. Now, I do offer a guideline of how you can move through it so that step by step what you're supposed to do, because I think we talked about this before. It's like the work that I'm doing with myself, but also guiding clients through. It's really about honing in on that kind of like woo woo energetic offer from some magical place that being birthed through you. So it's very feminine, maybe like witchy kind of energy. And we're in the 3D. So it's also about taking action. So there is process that is required to translate this into something actionable that someone can actually like transact and say, hey, I want to buy your offer. I'm going to give you this in exchange for this. So that being said, I really feel like the most important thing is for you to get clear on authentically, like what's the offer that you want to put out into the world. And I have in my program, one of the first exercises that you'll do is you'll find your aligned income pathway, but it basically gets you thinking about like, what are the things that really light me up? What are the things that come naturally to me? What's something that somebody would be willing to pay for? And you find the sweet spot in all of the different criteria. And you can also have things like, this is a non-negotiable. It has to be something I can do remotely, or it has to be something in this space. You can put those constraints in. It doesn't matter. You're going to find that sweet spot of exactly where your offer is going to be born from. So the aligned income pathway, it's not an offer yet, because an offer is, I'm going to give you this and you're going to give me that. It's a transaction. But that's where I start, is finding that aligned income pathway, because then it's like, when you're clear on the energy that you're going to be building this offer from, then it's not coming from, I've got to do all this stuff. I've got to figure out my brand. I've got to get my point of sale system set up. I have to register my LL. You're actually coming from service. You're coming from contribution. You're coming from, oh my gosh, this is like birthing out of me. And now I just have to find the right container to put it in, because it's coming. Baby is coming. Now I have to find the wrapper, it's a little cradle to put it in so I can show people. So really that's where I would recommend starting for sure, is just to get that clear alignment. Because here's the other thing, in our society, so often it's like most of our life is really based around work, and we live our lives to work. For most of us do. We have a job, we show up every day, and then we kind of build our life around that. And it kind of like dictates how we live. In this model, I'm like, no, we're going to figure out the life that you want, and then we're going to build you a business that can support you in living that life. So we kind of flip it on its head, because when you build it from that place, then you're clear actually on the game that you're playing. You're clear
Yes.
on what you're actually creating. A lot of times we think, I need more money and then I can live my dream life, or I need to have this business set up and then I can relax. And the thing that is challenging, even for me, as I'm doing it, because it's a complete rewire and a shift over the norm and of how I've been operating for so many years, is to say, no, the way I want to feel comes first. The energy that I want to embody, that comes first. Because when I create from the energy that is in my dream life, in my big North Star vision of where I'm taking my life, when I create from that energy, that makes that a reality, a possibility. When I create from, I have to do this because of this and this and this and all these things that might go wrong if I don't, then I'm creating from a fear-based energy, from a scarcity-based energy, from lack, from anxiety. And so what am I doing? I'm building a life, and the foundation of that life is literally anxiety, scarcity, lack, all those things that I don't want. So the alignment is key. That's the first thing, is to like really get clear. What am I building here? What am I really doing here? What's the life that I really want to build? How is it going to feel when I'm living that life? Like, what's the energy going to be? How is that going to, when I wake up every day, how am I going to feel in my body? What are the things that I'm going to see? What are the relationships that I have? Like starting at that place and already starting to like take action on it, not waiting until you get your business set up and you start making money to do it, but it's like already putting those things into practice. And then from that place, it's like, okay, so what would I need to live that life? What would be the support structures? A big one for a lot of people is income, which is why I put this offer together in the way that I did. So, okay, what kind of, how can you have a business that doesn't suck your life, but actually supports your life, where you're not like working for the business, but the business is now working for you? So that's what the aligned income pathway exercise is designed to do. First, you're getting clear on, this is the life that I'm building, this is the dream, and then it's like, all right, so what would be the pathway that would get me there? Then going into things like discovering what that offer is, what the transactional, I'm going to give my clients this or my customers this, and they're going to give me this in exchange. But it's birthed out of that true alignment space. And from there, then it's message resonance. You want to find, because now you've got an offer, and it's probably a really good one. And it may be something where it feels like in the traditional way of doing business, like, oh, there's no market for it, or like, I got to find my niche. But the way that we have all these amazing digital tools now. So you were asking earlier, like, what are the things that I like about that consciousness level of like the achievement and the more corporate style? I love the technology stuff because it can enhance and support really living in flow. So we have all of the tools required for you to build a business, for anybody to build a business. It's just a matter of like, okay, now that you know what you want to do, you know the life you're going after, you know how you want to contribute and serve, you know what that offer is going to be that you can give people and they can give you back. So now we just got to find out, how are we going to tune this message so that what you're offering, people are like, ooh, I want some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Resonance. So that's when I would start thinking about brand. But honestly, like every business is different. So it's going to depend on your offer and like the kind of business that you're building. But for a lot of people who are looking to do lifestyle businesses and maybe having their like coaching or consulting or something that they're doing with a digital product on Instagram or something like that, like you are the brand. And when you show up authentically, it kind of like organically is going to create the brand when you're not trying to be anybody but yourself. And it actually is going to be, a lot of times we think about like, oh, what's the unique value proposition of this offer? Well, you are, because no one can replicate you. People can sell the exact same thing, they can say the exact same words, but they're not bringing your essence to it. And the way that you present, the way that you offer, it's going to be unique to how somebody else would do it. And they're both valid, and different people are going to resonate with different things. So, but the practice is not like competing in the market. It's really just practicing your craft of tuning that frequency to get it. The right buyers are coming to me.
Oh, I love that so much. I love centering, understanding what game you're playing, I think you said, which is just like, that's so huge. And like, once you get that, that's like a core level reorientation to your own creative power. And it dissolves that false binary between like serving self and serving the other. It's like, if you are really truly tuned into what your medicine is, then yeah, all of these like categories of finding your need, it's like you've tuned in so deeply, have come into an embodiment of your own medicine, that all you have to do is radiate that frequency and it will be discovered and it will be needed. In terms of thinking about how transformation occurs, I want to also foreground that I'm in your your initial offer. I'm currently in that program, which will you state the name of it as well?
Yeah.
And
So
we'll link it in the show notes as well.
yeah, it's the Soft Girl Era Hard Launch Kit, and it's
I
basically
love
the
it.
starter kit to enter your Soft Girl era, as opposed to Girl Boss era, which is definitely my personal transformation. Girl Boss to Soft Girl. And when I say soft girl, I feel like that, I mean, it's an Instagram or a social media trend or whatever, but for me, it's really about allowing my feminine to flow and really being able to live from my heart and listen to my body and really just experience joy and ease and magnetism and all of the things that become available when I'm not rushing from thing to thing to thing to thing. So the Soft Girl Era Hard Lunch Kit it takes you through a lot of the process that I just went.
Yeah.
So you learn, you get really clear on like, what's the dream life that I'm building? It takes you through some exercises around that. It takes you through exactly how to identify your aligned income pathway. And then there's a video training that also helps to outline the business philosophy. And it really, I was saying it kind of flips it on its head of having instead of working for your business, it's really
Yeah.
about business work for you. It's about creating from a foundation of self-love instead of a foundation of, I feel like I should be doing this. Because if you create from that foundation, then you're going to build a business that's not in alignment and it's never going to feel like flow and ease. But when you build from self-love and you say this, like, I'm investing in this business, I'm building it from this foundation of self-love because I love myself so much that, yeah, I get to pay my mortgage or pay my rent every month. I get to invest in delicious, healthy food. I get to travel. I get to do these things to enrich my experience of life. I get to buy gifts for people, like all of those things. That's what building from a foundation of self-love creates, from this like really pure place, not a place of obligation or like, this is what I think a business is supposed to look like. But no, actually, for me, the life that I want to lead, this is how my business needs to work so that I can
Yeah.
live my best life.
Yeah, it's so good. I just want to tout how good it is because I've been through so many different trainings, and I love how you mentioned this idea of like kind of usurping this narrative around needing to be like unique or needing to like find your UVP. What I love about your program is that it is like you are so deeply embodied in your own medicine, and it's just like, yeah, you just have like light pouring from your eyes. You're joyful. You have this like really palpable sense of joy, and it's like having like a sister come alongside you and tell you these things that like deep down, but you need someone to like tell you and be like, girl, like you can do this. And it's like it's such a sweet like marrying of the structure and the flow. It's like, okay, let's get into the feeling of it. Here's the action you can take. And it's like it's a really, really beautiful weaving. And so I love that the title of the that particular like entry offer is like the soft girl era hard launch kit. So it's like you get to be soft, but you get to like there's going to be some pointed moments of decision and action. And so it really brings through again that integrative medicine of like the being and the doing. And so um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a joy to move through that.
I'm so glad you're loving it. Thank you for sharing. I love hearing feedback from people because I I was just creating this thing from my heart and then you put it out in the world and then you're like, I think this is valuable. But to hear it, like I've been getting really good feedback from people along the way and it's just amazing to know that this thing that came like from such a pure place inside of me, both with my kind of like tuning in more from a spiritual level, but also bringing in my lived experience of like, hey, this is how I can really make this something tangible. So it's not just an idea, but something tangible for people to create.
Yeah.
And also, like, you were making me think, we were talking about the polarity of masculine and feminine energy. And I feel like, to your point, the so much of the foundational work of this method is really in the feminine. But then once you are locked in on like, oh yeah, this is like the energy that I want to create. This is my vision. This is like what I deeply, deeply desire. Then it makes that masculine piece so fun because you're not operating like I think a lot of times when women get burnt out from being in their masculine, it's because there's a misalignment. But we
Yeah.
have, like, all human beings have both kinds of energy, and we get to practice and use both of them integrated. And so it's like this process, it really brings you into that feminine, like how you want to feel, how you want to flow. And then we set about making the masculine structure that can like be the container for your flow in your life.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, that piece is huge because when you have been in that hyper masculine mode, and it can feel so tempting to just collapse and to view like soft girl. And there's even like in memes that I'm like completely obsessed with and love and reshare, but like there's like the soft girl is like like she's like in a mossy pasture drinking honey wine with the fairies. It's like that's totally the vibe, but also we can't always be in a space of complete surrender. Like there is a dance. So I love that you're calling attention to the fact that when we have an imbalance, or when these two primal energetics are not speaking to one another, they're not in this like lover's dance, then that's when you get these kind of outsized personality aspects, or, you know, hormonal imbalances, just all of these kind of different ways that our biology, our spirit can become imbalanced and suffer. And so when we can honor the way that both can serve us and serve to create the space for us to enjoy that soft life. We can't enjoy the soft life if we're collapsed and we don't have any structure. I've lived that. I've definitely tried that and it doesn't work. So
Yeah. I had a moment of that too. Like after I left girl boss life, I was like, I'm not answering any emails. I'm not putting anything on my calendar. And I needed that for the balance. But then it became like that also became toxic, right? Like I had overcorrected, and
yeah.
it's like, it's kind of bringing them back into flow. But it's like, to your point, it's always a dance.
Mm.
And so a big part also, like when you get into my, like further into the process and some of the deeper programs, it's really about reconnecting with your body, learning to discern moment to moment. It's like always being connected to the present moment. What's my intention? What's my vision? How is this moment serving that, not serving that? What can I bring to this moment to create the life that I'm here for? But it is like a constant dance. Like I even had a call last night with a couple of friends, and I was realizing there was a moment like a few months ago when it was really serving me to just keep my energy very narrow and focused, and like focus on some foundational routine stuff for myself. And so I kind of like tuned out a lot of social life. And then I was talking to them last night and I was like, I've overcorrected on that. It is time to bring social life back into the mix because now it's become like where I'm like sitting here saying like, I feel alone. I'm like, well, you've got several messages in your text that you haven't responded to, girl. So it is just checking in. And it's also so helpful to have people, like community, that will like hold you high in that way, and like
Mm.
be really frank and honest with you, and not like get scared of your messiness, or
Yes.
let you be unwilling to say something because they're afraid of using their own voice. So it's another huge thing that I have invested in over the past few years after leaving my other company, which is
That's
amazing.
huge. I love that. I love that we spiraled into that because in the kind of solopreneur, entrepreneurial journey, we're kind of moving potentially from systems and structures where we have a team, right? So we might be working for a company that doesn't belong to us, or we might be stewarding our own company, but there's an inbuilt team. And so when you make this shift into working for yourself and maybe being a team of one at the start, it can feel kind of, lonely or isolating. And so one of the things so I love that you mentioned like, okay, you have to be intentional about maintaining friendships, especially like I'm in my early 40s now. You're like approaching that age, but it's like there's a shift that happens where, yeah, there can be an inward turn that is necessary and needed. And so attuning to the seasons of self that are, they can be astrologically driven, they can be just seasons of life, all of the micro and macro ways in which we experience our own personal and collective cycles and how they overlay. But the acknowledgement that, like, okay, if you want something in your life, if that's like a big picture or goal that you have is to have a life that's rich with friendships, like you have to actually invest in them. And so, like, taking those micro actions of texting people back and cultivating conscious friendships. And also in the business sense, like, I'm interested in your take on creating more distributed teams. So like where in corporate we might have like a hierarchical team where there's very clear roles and responsibilities. So when you're starting out, I think that there can be, again, we have two poles. There can be a tendency to be like, okay, I'm going to hunker down. I'm going to do everything on my own. I'm not going to seek mentorship. I'm not going to outsource, anything at all, because one, like, no one cares about my business more than I do, which I think is, that there's an important aspect to doing your own marketing and sales, I think, when you're just starting out, because like you can just get into the like felt texture of your own business. And if you're outsourcing that too soon, it can create some weirdness. But like, what's the kind of like appropriate time to set up systems? Because I think that's a big barrier for a lot of people getting set up, because they're like, okay, I have my offer. Like, what do I do with it? Should I invest in this? Especially when like you're not profitable. There's nothing to reinvest into the business. And so what's the kind of sweet spot for setting up systems and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I like what you were saying about there's so much value of doing things on your own in the beginning to really, I mean, you just get a lot of information. I'm obviously like a newer business with this business, and so I'm in DMs all the time with people. I have my own sales calls. I learned so much about where people are at, and it helps me understand, like, going back to that message resonance piece, like you start to just kind of anticipate, oh, this type of messaging really works. That's invaluable in terms of like when to outsource certain things. Again, it's going to depend. So it's like, it's going back to the discernment piece. It's going back to what is that big picture vision that I want for my life? And everyone is going to probably have a slightly different, they're going to have their own set of priorities, and that's going to dictate how they should make the decision. So I don't think there's one blanket way to do it, but I can speak for myself. I basically like to do everything myself until I either tap out my capacity or knowledge for it, or I get bored of it. And I'm like, okay, I've mastered this. I know it like the back of my hand. But like, it's now becoming cumbersome to put my energy on it because I'm no longer challenged by it. That's a good sign of like, I'm going to hand this off. Or if I'm like scratching my head on a problem and I'm trying a lot of different options and just not really getting anywhere, that's another place that I like to reach out and either like hire a consultant, or I don't know, even like phone a friend or that kind of thing. Or, and even like getting like reading books or like watching YouTube videos and stuff. I think one of the things that I notice from a lot of people that I speak to, because like I said, I'm in the DMs talking to people all the time. A lot of people come in and they think they have to like choose a pathway. They're like, I see all these ads for, maybe I could do affiliate marketing, or maybe I could sell a digital product. And like, I just don't know. Like, they get overwhelmed with the plethora of tactics out there. And so that's why, again, it's like, you got to know what you want. You got to start there, because then when you're very clear on what you want, the strategy and the tactics, they kind of unfold organically, because you're like, I'm going here. So then you're like, what's going to get me there? Boom, boom, boom. So that's I guess that's my answer, is it depends. And it's really the discernment of what game you want to play and what game you want to win.
Oh my gosh, I love that you spoke to the overwhelm. It's like, it's so cool that we are in this digital age where we have access to all of these amazing tools, but the overwhelm is real, especially when, you're like, okay, I'm going to take my business online, or I'm going to start a digital business. And you're like, oh my gosh, there are a million ways to make $1 million. Like, what? And you can just kind of get stultified in inaction, because you're like, what's the right? And then it's again, this kind of past programming of like wanting to make the right move and then not making any move until you know what the right move is. And I think a lot of times just recognize that not making any move is a decision point. Like you've made a decision to stay stuck. And so sometimes any move is better. Like try it, try the thing that feels, feels
Yeah.
most resonant and like let it, come to a point of completion and then try something else. Yeah. I love that you said you spoke into that specific piece of like knowing when to hand something off to. It's like if I get, if I get bored with it or if I, reach a capacity point in my own, understanding. I think those are, yeah, really salient points to take into kind of constructing whatever we're all building out there.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said too about taking action. I mean, I think that that's where you get the most learning. There's people want a step by step. If you do XYZ, which is kind of conditioning, like if you get straight A's and if you go to college and if you get a good job and have the white picket fence. So it's like people want the certainty when
Yeah.
they're looking to start a business. But the reality is there is no certainty. The only thing that you can truly bet on is yourself, your commitment, your determination, and your willingness to not compromise on your goals. That's the only thing, because what works for somebody is probably, there's good things about it maybe, but that you can't replicate someone else's magic formula because that's their magic formula. Your
Yeah.
job is to discover your own magic formula, and the only way that you do that is you've got to get out in the world and like take swings, and you're gonna miss. This business I started in February, I guess is when I launched the Girl Boss Exit Plan in April, but I kind of started this brand messaging in February. But I've failed on so many different things. Like I tried opening a retreat. Nobody signed up for it. I like have launched different offers. No one really bought them. I tried different ad campaigns. I lost a lot of money. But you learn every step of the way. And like there's no book, there's no shortcut for that type of experience. And you can't just look at somebody else's journey. You can get some like good hypotheses about what might work for you from other people, but you're not going to know until you get on the court and make your move. And then you're
Yeah.
like, this is what it's like to actually shoot a basket. Got it. Like I didn't aim right that time. So it's a practice.
Yes, I love that. I love just holding business as a devotional practice. Like it can be completely inseparable from your spiritual practice. It's just such a beautiful way to ground your gifts. And I guess I'm kind of spiraling into a question around like, I feel like a lot of people have curiosity about like what to monetize, like what of your gifts to monetize. I even went through a period where I was like, I don't want to monetize my spiritual gifts. I want to have my income stream completely separate because I don't want to burn out. So again, that's like maybe a fear-based distinction where I'm like, okay, I'm going to make my money over here so I can have my gifts expressed over here. I can be of service over here so that like that I'm not tainting I'm not tainting one with the other. And I think that's, such a false binary there. But I'm curious, I think there is something to be said about like some things are not meant to be monetized and some things are. And like what is your experience with that distinction?
Well, it's going to be the same. It depends. It's going to depend. But you know what you were saying, like about your own experience with the false binary. It's like that's again where, yeah, maybe it's a false binary, but I think sometimes we, even in that, there's like a little bit of a construct of like right or wrong, like wrong making for yourself. But the thing is, we're in this embodied human experience to kind of like sort through some of this stuff. And so going back to what we were talking about spiral dynamics, it's like in order to be your full integrated self, you have to move through the lower levels of consciousness and master those first. Like when you're a toddler, you're very much like me, 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 me. That's a necessary evolution, stop on evolution of your consciousness. And it's the same thing with business. So like for you in this phase of life, that may be the exact right decision for you of I'm going to keep this separate and have this over here because that's what works for me. What's important is that you're always like clear on what's the big picture game that I am up to here, what's the big picture vision, and how does this support or not support.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you get to trust the process. And like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I figured out the full integrated approach day one.
Yeah.
No, the learning of it. And so you get to, again, be discerning of like, in this moment, if I'm committed to living like in my soft girl era, if I'm committed to living from my heart, what do I need in this moment that can truly support me in living like that? And like,
Yeah.
for you, it could be, I need to keep it separate because maybe there's stuff with the spiritual things that I really want to practice building my muscle around or my skill set around. And I just get to have this other money making system over here so that I can put my energy on that and not freak out about bills or whatever. So,
Yeah. I love that. It's like, yeah, how boring would life be if we didn't get to live into it? If we had like all of the pre-built answers and like I feel like one of the false kind of aspects of what I might call corporate consciousness is this like compulsive seeking of clarity, of like clarity as like a high level, and clarity is important, but the mystery is equally as important, and allowing yourself to be in the cloudy unknown and like really mentoring with yourself there. And like that's the time where you can really make friends with your shadow aspects, and where a lot of that. So then when you do come into a point of clarity, you've done a lot of the groundwork, like that deep, earthy, raw work that gets done when you are allowing yourself to be in spaces that are just completely deconstructed and like open ended, and you don't know what's going on, and not pushing through that prematurely. I mean, obviously there's a point where you can spiral into like deeper inaction, and you're rotting instead of composting, and it's like you want to compost. But yeah, coming back to that, only you can discern like where you are at in that process, and when it's time to shift into like, okay, I think that some clarity might be available to me, and that's an ask I can make of the universe now to reveal like how can I be of service, whatever the prayer is, like speak it, but not being in this kind of compulsive space of like I need to clear away the fog. Sometimes the fog is the medicine. And so
yeah,
yeah.
what's coming up for me is really like the idea of trust and faith. We don't have the full picture of like what the universe is concocting. And even though like we are divine beings, we have divinity within us, we have magic within us, we can't see the full picture. And so our job is again to do the work of quieting the ego and allowing us to move through, like let the energy of love, of the universe, of spirit, whatever you want to call it, move through you, and have trust, have faith that that's enough. And that as
Mm,
you move forward on that path, you're going to be moving towards the direction that you want. Like things are going to, it's hard. It's scary, especially I think for a lot of people who are former girl bosses or like wanting to get out of that. I think for me, a lot of it was wanting to control outcomes and be like, if I work this hard, I can have this certainty and da, da, da. And that's actually not how the universe works. There is no certainty. What you can be certain about is who am I going to be in the uncertainty? And that's what you all have power and choice over.
yes. I love how you framed it here. And then in another place, like framing it as the thing that you can trust is yourself. And like this, like, how wild to just bet on yourself and to be like, I am certain that I will show up for myself, and to like give yourself that promise is just like that's such a rich terrain of transformation. And it's not necessarily a holistic, like it's not like you have to keep choosing yourself. You have to keep showing up and being like, okay, today again, I'm gonna bet on myself. Some days you won't, and other days like you will, and it gets to be that moment by moment evolution and honoring where you've fallen short as part of the process as well. And I liked how you put that. I want to ask you about, I know you recently shared that you are going to be journeying to Mount Everest. And I'd love
Yeah.
to ask you just about that, and like, I mean, just talking about like ambition and goals, and like, yeah, how is that transforming your life right now as you prepare?
Yeah. This was so cool. I met these girls. I met this woman, Dawn, at a Joe Dispenza retreat in April. And she's like a really intense climber, trekker. She's training to summit Everest. This trip is
Wow.
not to be summiting, very technical. little advanced trip that I'm not ready for. I don't know if I'll ever choose to be ready for that, but so she's putting this together for some stuff that she's been working on, and she was like, I'm doing a beta trip to test it out. Do you want to come? And I was like, yes. Then after we finished a meditation, like the next day, there was a meditation we finished, and this other girl that I had been chatting with, Caitlin, I just kind of had a feeling she would say yes if I told her about it. So I said, I met this woman, Dawn, and she invited me to go to Mount Everest. Do you want to come? And she was like, yeah. So we're going to Mount Everest. And it's great. I've done trekking in the past, but I haven't done this magnitude of a trek before. And I'm also like older than before, obviously. So I've really taken the training seriously. And it's been pretty cool because now that I did set that goal, I've had to really orient and align so much of my day to day. And it's like calling forth an elevation in so many different aspects of my life because it's not just going to Everest. Like there's a lot of logistics that I have to take care of before in order to like responsibly
Yeah.
go there because it's a 3-week trek. So there's a lot of things that I'm putting in place now. I'm in Mexico City, but I'm going to move back to Texas because that's going to make it all easier. So there's all of that stuff. So I'm getting this place ready to rent out while I'm away, like all of these logistics. Meanwhile, I'm like training every single day. I've started like tracking my nutrition in a whole new way. And I literally just got the Whoop band so that I can track my heart rate and my sleep because I'm realizing how important recovery is. I've like done some physical activity in my life, but like haven't been super serious about training. And now that I am, I'm like, this is why people talk about recovery, because now that I'm recovering adequately, I can actually sustain the daily workouts. Before I would have crashed out because I wasn't getting the right nutrition and the right sleep. So it's all of these nuanced things that I didn't really think about. I was just like, yeah, I'll go to Everest. But now I'm like, wow, now I'm like a wellness person. And it's great. I have more energy. Like it feels like a magic pill or something to actually like work out, eat well, and get enough sleep. It's like, this feels really good. Yeah, I'm excited.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that you said it's an elevation. And I think it just came out organically. It's an elevation of my whole being.
I know. And it's also so funny because I feel like people talk about Everest as a metaphor of like this big goal, but it's like, no, I'm literally going to Everest. And it's interesting too, because one of the metaphors that I use, like I bring this up in my sales calls a lot when people are like asking, what is this program about? Then I feel like a lot of the masculine paradigm of like how to operate, but definitely in business is like you set this big goal and you go climb that mountain, you do whatever it takes, and even if it's painful. So like that's the paradigm that I feel like is all over the place, especially on
Mm-hmm.
social media. My method, I talk about it being like, well, we're going to plant the seed of your intention, which is like living in your soft girl era, and we're just going to water that. We're gonna put some sunlight on it, and we're going to see like what direction you're blooming in, and we're just like, that's how we're going to do this. We're going to do it with ease. You're going to grow into the sunlight, and it's a different metaphor. So it's funny now that I'm actually doing physically this thing, but I have to say it feels just so aligned because it's not coming from a place of like, I got to challenge myself.
Yeah.
I told you kind of how it all emerged. It just happened really organically. There's 4 women going. There's another woman that I haven't met yet. And it's just like, it just kind of was like, yeah, we want to do this. Like the reason I want to do it is because I love being immersed in nature. I love hiking. And like the idea of being able to do that with 3 other women who are like share similar values, and like just to go immerse myself and feel my body. Like one of the reasons I love hiking is I just love feeling my body and like being immersed in the elements in nature. And so it's like, it sounds like this really like big thing, but it's coming from such a place of like, this is aligned, it's like it just feels soft, even though it sounds a little intense.
Yes, I love that frequency frame. And two, that like encouragement to like you had that ping of like, I don't know why, but I think she's going to be interested. And just that easeful, yes, I feel like we're coming in from her end. Like she was like, yeah, I'm aligned to that. That it's like things get to be easeful when you are in your core frequency. Like when you are emanating that essence, then you just attract these aligned opportunities. You're connecting other people with their aligned opportunities. And it just feels like you're kind of swimming in this blissful dreamscape. So it's very cool. So I'd love to invite you to share, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on, really, I'm currently only active on Instagram, but you can find me Instagram, xgirlboss. I'm also on TikTok and YouTube at xgirlboss. So those are places to find me.
Yeah, and this will put your link to the offer we discussed, the Soft Girl Era Hard Launch Kit, which is highly recommend, 10 out of 10.
Thank
Or
you.
maybe since we're feminizing it, we can give it like a 12 out of 12 or a 13 out of 13.
I like
Get out of the face.
that.
Yeah, so I'm just, yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your joy. It's been delightful.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love the work that you're doing. And I wasn't familiar with your podcast when you reached out to me, but when I watched the episodes, I was like, this is so brilliant. The way that you navigate the conversations, the questions you bring, the thoughtfulness, and just your own wisdom and magic is just really unique and special. So I hope you do this podcast for a very long time because it's really, really valuable.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate that. It's delightful. Well, thank you to all of our guests for tuning in. And yeah, reach out to Sarah if you feel aligned. We'll put links in the show notes. We're on YouTube. We're on every other platform. So if you're out and about, if you're hiking in the Himalayas, you can catch us on YouTube or on Spotify. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.